Welcome to the Workplace Minute, powered by H3HR Advisors and sponsored by WorkHuman. Thanks for joining me for a quick update on what's important in the world of work. My name is Steve Boese. Today in the Workplace Minute, we're going to talk about one of the most serious threats facing the American economy, the Super Bowl. Let's break it down. Every year like clockwork, a fresh wave of studies, some from HR and HR tech companies, hits the news feed in the days leading up to the big game. I know you've seen them. They have headlines and clickbait titles like "Millions of workers will call in sick on Monday," "Billions of dollars in lost productivity on Super Bowl Monday," or "Employers brace for the Super Bowl hangover." These numbers are always big and attention-grabbing, and the tone of these findings is always urgent, and the conclusion is often the same, that this football game is somehow a crisis for the American business. And every year I read these kinds of articles and I think to myself, well, this is just silly. Because what these studies are really measuring is not some sudden collapse in the workforce. It's measuring something that happens every single day in every single company in America. People take time off. People use their PTO. People take personal days off. People sometimes take a long weekend or tag an extra day at the end of a business trip. And sometimes people show up on Monday morning a bit tired from the weekend and not quite at their best and shockingly not at their most productive. But somehow we've determined that when this happens on the Monday after the Super Bowl, it's some sort of national productivity emergency. But when lots of people are out of the office in the middle of July or on the day after Thanksgiving or on a random Friday in March, that's just normal life. And no one runs articles in August that say, "Millions of workers take vacation this week. American productivity crashes." Because we have the common sense to know that rest and fun and time away from work are part of how real human beings actually function. That's what's built into the system. It's the reason why PTO exists at all. Because trust me, companies would try to get away with not having PTO at all if they thought they could. But for some reason, the Super Bowl gets framed differently, as this is a major issue for companies to wrestle with. As if enjoying a cultural event that over 100 million Americans enjoy and care about leads to some kind of moral failure of the work ethic. And that's where this gets interesting to me as a workplace topic, because the Super Bowl is not just a football game. It's one of the very few shared cultural moments in the United States. People who often disagree on things like politics or culture or almost anything else can often connect socially and pleasantly to watch the game. Perhaps not the halftime show, but at least the game and get into the commercials. And that kind of shared experience is actually quite a rare thing these days, and it does have value. It can help create connections, conversation, and a break from the constant stress, anxiety, and pressure that so many workers are dealing with today. So instead of seeing that as some sort of existential threat to productivity, organizations would be better off just leaning into it. Have some fun with the game if you can. If you still have time, run a low-stakes squares pool. Invite everyone to wear their team jerseys to work. Talk about the game on the first thing on Monday. Maybe even cut people slack on Monday morning start time and maybe cancel any meetings before, say, 11 a.m. or so. Because the reality is that a workforce that feels human, connected, and allowed to enjoy life a little bit will be far more engaged and productive over time than one that feels constantly measured by their hourly output and any lost dollars for every minute they're not actually at work. You can't build a great organization by squeezing every possible ounce of labor out of people on every single day of the year. You build one by creating an environment where people feel valued and feel like they have the space to breathe. And honestly, if someone takes a PTO day on Monday because they stayed up too late watching the game, that is not a productivity crisis. That's why PTO exists. In fact, I would argue that if your organization cannot withstand a few extra absences on a Monday in February without claiming millions of losses, you may have bigger structural problems than the Super Bowl. So this year, instead of worrying about Super Bowl hangovers, maybe employers can see this for what it can be, a chance to share in the fun of a shared cultural experience with the people. And sometimes the healthiest thing for a workplace isn't more productivity, it's simply more humanity. Thanks so much for listening, and a big thank you to WorkHuman for supporting the Workplace Minute. If this episode made you think about how your organization can continue to stand up for everyone in your workplace, please share it with a colleague. I'm Steve Boese, and this has been the Workplace Minute from H3HR Advisors.